Hello everyone. This is a re-record of my speech in the alcohol school held by Lallemand Group. I presented it at Bangkok on 19th of July 2023. Greeting everyone. My name is Jeng-Ing Chen. Before we started, I want to say thank you to Lallemand Group. It is my honor to be the section speaker today. I am the former distillery manager of Laizhou Distillery. After the commissioning was completed and the distillery was fully operational, I was assigned to be the director of brand advocate and education department to support Laizhou marketing team. In this section, there are 3 topics I will cover today. The first is a perspective and observation of whiskey market in China. And secondly, I will introduce the Laizhou Distillery to let you know what we are doing in China. And last, Laizhou is an East customer of Lallemand, and we had a conversation that it might be interesting to show Laizhou spirits made by Lallemand. So, in the last topic, I will demonstrate the character of Laizhou malt and grain new make spirits and mature spirits we found now. Let's begin today's interesting journey. Firstly, let's take a look on the current Chinese whiskey market. According to the customs of China government, the imported value of whiskey is growing fast. The 4 years CAGR is almost 26% from 210 million to 560 million US dollars last year. In addition to that, the volume is growing as well. The CAGR is around 8% from 2019 to 2022. There is also an open data on Scotch Whisky Association website that the export value to China is from 240 million to 290 million US dollars, increased from last 2 years. You can see an interesting point here. Nearly half of the market is Scotch whisky. Other importing countries are American, Japan, and Ireland. Those are the traditional whiskey production countries. International Wine and Spirit Research published a report in May. It showed that the growing volume from 221 to 22 is only 0.5% due to the COVID lockdown, and it was difficult for Chinese to go to restaurants during a period. But the prediction for CAGR of whiskey consumption from 2022 to 27 is 6.2%. We are confident that the whiskey drinking culture is forming and maturing. Another strong evidence is there are many whiskey distilleries under construction now, including Diageo and Pernod Ricard. A current report published by Tmall and Taobao in 2022 on customers' behavior from 2019 to 21. The observation is the foreign spirits changing a lot. Whiskey segment occupies a large portion of online marketing, and its growing speed is faster than other spirits such as cognac, vodka, and gin. The CAGR is around 65%. We also see the price range is changing. Price over 300 RMB segments are increasing. It means customers have started to choose higher class whiskey now. In those segments, more than 17% are malt whiskey or single malt whiskey. The reason is very obvious. The strategy of Scotch malt whiskey premiumization is very successful. After observation of whiskey market, and we wonder who is the main whiskey consumer. Here is the portrait. According to the record of buying and delivery, more than 62% customers located at large and super large cities such as Shanghai, 北京、广州、Shenzhen, Chengdu, Chongqing. Most of them receive fuller education. It can be understood easily that those people who have fuller education can access to new information easier and are more willing to try different things. If we survey the preference of consumers, it is quite interesting that most of the consumers say they like a balanced whiskey, but in reality, they choose sweet taste whiskey more than a balanced one. The definition of balanced whiskey is a combination of fruity, floral, and malty. The sweet whiskey means sherry cask with grape, dry fruit, and chocolate flavor. Sherry cask whiskey is always the most preferential in China. Due to the marketing and commercial campaigns, Chinese people can know Scotch and Japanese whiskey better, so they choose them more than American bourbon or Irish whiskey. Only a small part of customers try other whiskey, such as French, Australian, or Swedish. Where can customers buy their whiskey? Because the regulation for online alcoholic beverage selling in China is not very strict, it is very easy to get whiskey products online. Most of the customers use Taobao, Jing-Dong, or other platforms to get their whiskey because they have various choices. If the customers want to get their whiskey quicker, they may choose supermarket or liquor shop as the second and the third choice. How much they spend or what is the price range they will choose. People tend to buy the price around the 15 to 70 US dollars whiskey, which is similar to the previous survey, 150 to over 300 RMB price range. After they get the whiskey, where do they drink? Drinking at home or with friends are two big choices. A portion of youth will love to drink whiskey at bar or pub, which we could say they love to share or party with friends. Drinking whiskey in restaurant becomes trend because elder Chinese love 白酒 with the cuisine, and the younger generation, they don't want to choose steady stuff, so they turn to whiskey rather than 白酒. There are several key points summarized from the current surveys. We can get the idea of the main Chinese whiskey consumers. Younger generation, they receive education and live in a large-sized city. The salary range from 400 to 3,000 US dollars a month. They tend to buy 15 to 70 US dollars whiskey online or supermarket and have a sweet tooth. They drink at home by themselves or party with friends. If we can put tags on them, it would be stylish, fashion, want to have fun, focus on self-need, and without cliché. After the Chinese whiskey market observation, the next topic is Laizhou Distillery introduction. This could help you get the rough idea of what we are doing in Chengdu, Sichuan. Yes, the Panda Sichuan. This tremendous picture is the bird view of production area of Laizhou Distillery. This is the grain receiving area. This is the silo room. There are 10 silos inside and each can host 250 metric ton grain. This large building is the tun room with milling area, mash tuns, cookers, fermenters, water treatment, utility and carbon dioxide recycle system. The one behind is, yes, the still room, where we put our 8-part stills and a continuous column system. After the distillation, the casks are filled here and shipped to the warehouse. By the way, we also produce gin here, in this room. This building hosts a small bottling line and an office. Those tanks host our vodka, and we will ship them to our ready-to-drink production facility. The forest behind the buildings is also part of Laizhou Distillery. We are constructing a visitor center embedded in this forest. Besides the production area, there are 30 warehouses nearby. The total storage capacity is around 1.2 million casks. This map will provide you a more detail of Laizhou Distillery. Phase 1 is real ready-to-drink factory. Phase 2 is what we saw in the previous slide. Phase 3 is the visitor center and forest I mentioned. Phase 4 and Phase 5 for our cask yard and warehouse. The bottling hall is in Phase 4. Our malt capacity is 4.8 million liter pure alcohol, which is similar to Lallemand, Kleinisch, or more if you need a comparison. We have a continuous column system to produce vodka and grain whiskey. The capacity is 30 million liter pure alcohol per year. In total, I would say we produced approximate 160,000 casks a year. Due to the wood policy of Laizhou Distillery, we use the new oak cask and STR cask for whiskey maturation. That is why we have 2 cooperages, one for making new oak cask and one for making STR cask. Here is the malt whiskey production flow we use in Laizhou Distillery. It is very simple, and it is a usual Scotch whiskey production method. I won't go detail with the technical figures and numbers in case of boring you guys. After the malt is received and inspected, we ground it by an 8-roller mill. The weak wood from last batch is mixed to do the mashing. After the mashing, the wood is extracted and yeast is added as well. After 72 to 80 hours fermentation, the fermentable substrate is basically all consumed up, and we can do the first distillation and then the second distillation. In second distillation, the distillate is separated into 3 parts: foreshot, hard, and faint. The hard part will be collected and filled in old casks to do the maturation. The foreshot and faint are collected together and mixed with low wine to repeat the second distillation. After the maturation of hard part, we will get more whiskey, and we execute the post-treatment such as dilution, cold filtration, color adjustment, and finally we bottle the whiskey as the malt whiskey product. For our grain whiskey and vodka, the production will be a bit more complicated, but the idea, the processing concept is the same. The raw material we use malt, wheat, maize, and rye. We ground them by hammer mill, and then we cook them for gelatinization in a pressurized cooker, and add the malt or enzyme for conversion. Turn the starch into small fermentable sugar. A part of mash will divert to propagator, and the rest will be fermented for 48 to 72 hours. When the fermentation is completed, the wash will be sent to analyzer or beer column if you are familiar to American term. After the first tower, The clean spirit will go through the rectifier or strip column. Voila! Then we get grain spirit. If we want to make grain whiskey, we mature the grain spirit in oak cask. If we want to make vodka, the grain spirit will be diluted and redistilled again. Laizhou Distillery is a whiskey distillery and faced to the ordinary customers. It is very important to think green and to minimize the effluent to the environment. We were awarded as Chinese 3-star green building. During the distillery design phase, we integrated the water, heat, and material using and recycling in the whole system. Here is the schematic process flow to demonstrate the idea of our distillery. We use grain, materials, water, and energy. During different production stages, we have different types of byproducts. Malt draft can be sold directly to farmers nearby. During the fermentation, carbon dioxide is collected, washed, compressed, and sold to our ready-to-drink factory on site. After the distillation, the spent wash is centrifuged and dried. The solid inside the spent wash can be sold as DDGS, dark dry grain with soluble. The DDGS is sold to cattle feed companies as well. The liquid from the spent wash can be used as backset or called sour mash to add back to grain cooking. The wastewater effluent will be anaerobic digester, which produced biogas like methane to power the office or non-production electricity. In the cooperages, wood dust and chips are recycled. These can be the fuel for oak staff toasting. The rest of them are sold to the construction materials companies and furniture companies. Except those green ideas, we also try to play something interesting. For example, we installed both whiskey mash tun and beer lauter tun to test the different characters of the different types of wort. The main difference is wort chirality. The beer lauter tun create clear wort due to the design of the sieve on the fourth bottom, the plug, and the blade. This might contribute a more floral and fresh flavor in the final distillate, which fits the research published by Scotch Whisky Research Institute several years ago. The yield of both 2 tons are nearly the same. After production for 2 years, we can draw the conclusion that the beer lauter tun is totally okay for whiskey production, no matter economical or flavor aspect. In Laizhou still room, there are 8 pot stills, 2 pairs of traditional style, 1 pair of bowl shape, and 1 pair of lantern shape. The different distillate character can be detected in those 3 types of still because of its shape, diameter to height ratio, and the surface area, which are all related to the reflex rate during distillation. Interestingly, after a long period of monitoring by blending team, their conclusion is that the flavor of new make from bowl shape and the lantern shape is lighter, floral, and fruitier. The new make from traditional shape is heavier, nutty, and malty. The heating method is a good factor we can play with. At the first distillation, we use external heater rather than internal heater because we can easily change the input steam pressure to adjust the temperature, and then we can mimic the direct fire heater, which we can produce a bit scorch and burnt flavor in our distillate. A pair of still is installed with a twin condenser, we are the third distillery performs this idea in the world, based on a paper published in 2011 by Harrison, Fegnan, Jake, and Brosnan. They discussed the copper effect in different parts of pot still. We commercialized this idea, and it really works interestingly. We got more complex, meaty, and nutty flavored distillate when we changed to the stainless steel condenser. There are only few working whiskey distilleries in China now. We want to produce the different characters of whiskey. What all we've done is to make our blending team life easier when they come to blend whiskey products. Not only the malt production, but also we have a little adventure in grain production system. Our cooking system is adjustable. We can change the mash bill depends on the production plan, so the temperature of liquefaction and cooking is changeable. The temperature range from 18 to 141 degrees Celsius, which we can process all types of grain. After the high temperature cooking, we installed a flash and a vacuum tank to recycle the heat. Then the mashed temperature drops to 63 degrees Celsius to do the conversion. Laizhou Distillery wants to produce the vodka and grain whiskey at the same site, so Italian company freely designed this distillation system for us. When we want to produce the grain whiskey, the wash goes through the analyzer and rectifier. If we want to produce the vodka, the spirit goes to the rest of the system. We can get very clean and flavorless vodka from this column system. After a little adventure in Laizhou Distillery, I would like to introduce something related to our partner. Lallemand Yeast is a good supplier to Laizhou Distillery. After the discussion, we agreed to reveal the performance of Lallemand Yeast in Laizhou Distillery. Here is the sugar dropped during the malt wort fermentation of MW Yeast. You will see the y-axis is a wheat strain because right now we use the portable refractometer for sugar measurement. The ethanol will affect the reading. We understand this, but adopt the easiest way to teach the employees to measure the trend is quicker. We focus on the trend, not exact number. After the fermentation, the QC team samples the wash and conduct the full measurement. Then we can get the correct ethanol and pH. Here is the performance of MW Yeast. I can say it does its job very well. GW Yeast also performs nice in Laizhou Distillery. The sugar drop rate is a bit different between different mash bill. The wheat mash bill reaches to steady state quicker than maize for at least 6 hours. Please do not be shocked by this quick fermentation. If you remember, I mentioned that we exclude yeast propagation for grain system, so the yeast is much more vigorous when it is pitched to the fermenters. Overall, GW Yeast also has a good performance, no matter it is a wheat-based or maize-based fermentable substrate. And you will notice that the final pH in grain is lower than in malt because we use backset sour mash during grain cooking to save water and provide better nutrition for yeast. That is the main reason why the final pH is lower than in malt. The third topic in this speech was a testing section, but due to the audience cannot drink the sample, this will only be a short introduction for what we found the flavor profile of Laizhou spirits. I won't go through the detail. You could pause the video for study. The yeast we used is Lallemand MW Yeast, and all the samples were all watered down to 43% ABV. It is quite easy to get grainy, oily, and a bit fruity flavor in new make spirit. If you taste it, the taste is quite the same. After the malt new make spirit, this is the web for bourbon barrel aged malt spirit for 1 year. You may detect the fruity, floral, and a hint of spicy and pepper woody flavor after 1 year maturation. I put the webs together and enlarged the scale so you could notice the difference between them. The biggest differences is the woody and spicy characters become stronger after maturation, and you may see that the grainy and fainty flavor are lesser than the unmatured spirit. After the malt, here are the panels for grain. We use the Lallemand GW yeast. You can get a cream honey with a bit dry fruit flavor. Of course, a bit grainy and baked bread flavor as well. After 1 year maturation, the vanilla and ice cream flavor are a bit stronger, and you can get the hint of woody and spicy flavor in the mature grain spirit as well. If we put the webs together again, we can get the idea of how mature grain spirit flavor changing in Laizhou Distillery. By the way, I would like to mention that the average temperature in summer is around 38 to 40 degrees Celsius and 0 degrees Celsius in winter. The maturation speed is quicker. The angel share is around 4% a year. Laizhou Distillery produced malt and grain whiskey, so in the future you will definitely see our single malt, single grain, and blend whiskey. This is all I want to share today. I would like to say thanks again to Lallemand Group, Shanghai Century Food Material Company, for being Laizhou's strongest supporters, and a final thanks to all the Laizhou Distillery team. If you have further questions, please don't be hesitate to contact me. You could drop me an email. My email is here. I hope you enjoy this video. In Chinese, we say 干杯. Thank you everyone. See you next time.